Thanks for joining, everybody. If you're here to learn a little bit about how you might build a in-company PowerShell community, you're in the right place. I'll just get started with a quick intro. I'm Frank Lesniak. I work at a company called West Monroe, and I'm going to spend just a second on the company because it's important for context of the talk. West Monroe is a mid-size business and technology consulting firm. Danny works there as well. We're both obviously on the technology side. At work, we spend most of our time on corporate M&A, divestitures, integrations, that sort of thing, and we use a lot of PowerShell. So that's just a quick backdrop for the talk. You'll see on the slide I've got a few QR codes. I do really appreciate connecting with folks. In general, I like connecting with people. Happy to talk in the hallway, et cetera, as well. But it also helps us demonstrate value to leadership. You know that we were actually here and we actually did connect with people. So I appreciate that. Danny, I'll let you do a quick intro.
Yeah, so hey everyone, Danny Stutz. I've been at West Monroe for about 6.5 years. I'm an architect in our enterprise technology practice. Work a lot with Frank on corporate M&A, which is kind of the need and kind of where I got started with PowerShell. I lead our internal PowerShell interest group, so I'm kind of taking over the reins from Frank over the years and have started scheduling things and setting up the agenda and everything like that. Kind of along those same lines, if you guys want to connect on like social media, that'd be awesome. Love connecting with people outside and catch me out in the hall as well. But yeah, with that, I think we can go ahead and get started here. So before we go into the content, just wanted to thank all the sponsors and everyone. Without them, it's not possible to have these events. So it's great to see some of the familiar faces like Chocolatey and everyone back. Yeah, if you haven't, go ahead and stop out there and say hi to them out at their booths. Yeah, with that, we'll get kind of into the content here. So in terms of like learning objectives, we just kind of wanted to share our experience in starting our own interest group, kind of some of the lessons we've learned from having our own interest group. But really, we want to show how having your own kind of internal PowerShell interest group can help with knowledge sharing as well as innovation around new scripts or new products and things like that. We'll also kind of talk through, how it can, help improve, the overall experience for, cross-team communication, as well as, just boosting efficiency overall, making sure people are working on the same things and things like that. Kind of lastly here, wanted to kind of show, some lessons learned from, making sure we keep how to keep the interest group running, how to keep people interested and engaged to make them kind of want to attend on a weekly basis like we kind of do. And yeah, with that, I'll kind of go over to the agenda here. So we'll start off with kind of our definition of what a interest group is, and then kind of why did we get these started, what kind of caused and spurred us to want to get these started. We'll talk through kind of how we got to the point we're at today. We started about 5 years ago, so we'll kind of go through that journey and share with you some lessons we learned from that, and then kind of close it out with just some lessons we've learned in case you're inspired to start your own interest group after this talk. So definition. So at West Monroe, we have 2 interest groups. We have our PowerShell interest group, which is more of kind of like a traditional like user group where it's we meet on a monthly basis. We have, presenters come in with like specific topics. Maybe they have like a new script they're showing off, something to help out, the whole team as a whole. But it's more of kind of a, formal kind of meeting versus our Toolmakers group. So our Toolmakers group is more of it's more informal. We meet on Gather like every week for about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how long people can stay. And this is more for like actually like working on scripts. So it's dedicated time for us to like collaborate on things, work on scripts, learn something new from our teammates, and help get past any issues with stuff that we're working on. So kind of why did we do this, right? What was the whole kind of reason we were thinking of doing this? Really, one of the main reasons was to encourage knowledge sharing. So at least at our company, before we had our interest group, we just kind of have scripts like everywhere. Like people just had like untitled.ps1 like wherever they wanted, and people were just kind of sending them back and forth. And it was kind of hard to have like a single place where we had all of our information, all of our scripts and what we did. So that was one of our main reasons for starting it, was just to make sure we're all talking to each other about like what we're developing, and just to avoid people making the same script 10 times, right? Secondly, it's really to help with overall like employee engagement and just provide upskilling people. So this is more, around people. We've had, multiple people in the interest group say like it's one of their favorite parts about kind of working at West Monroe, just because it helps them develop skills they wouldn't normally do if they weren't as a part of the interest group, working with a, mature tool chain and things like that. And then lastly, it was really to not only consolidate our efforts, like what we were working on, but it also helps with improving our, consulting project delivery. A lot of our scripts and things that we've written are for automation and like accelerating kind of, our project delivery. And so kind of having this single group allowed us to focus on like what we actually wanted to work on to help us out here. And with that, I will turn it over to Frank to kind of talk through our journey to get here.
Thanks, Danny. So this slide talks about 2019 and prior, and to be clear, we did a lot of PowerShell in 2019 and prior. But like Danny said, it wasn't in a Git source repository. It was centralized in some cases, like this silly screenshot of a OneDrive synced folder. We basically had scripts up on, and I'm sure some of you may be in this boat, but we had scripts up on OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, not because Danny and I and the rest of the team didn't know how to use Git. That wasn't the case. Or didn't think it was a good idea to use it. That also was not the case. It was more so about making sure that our team members who were maybe a little less sophisticated with this tool chain could get access to these scripts and do their job at our clients. We're out there serving clients and getting things done. So that was sort of the state of things from that perspective. And then on the right side, this is kind of talking about a software product that I created called Automated Build Environment, or ABE. And yes, that is a silhouette of Abraham Lincoln with a crossed sword. It's very much like a pirate flag. And yes, I have a very large version of this in my home. But it's a software product. The long story short on this is it was a very, very heavily customized version of the Microsoft deployment toolkit that let us come in and drop ship operating system images at clients. And if I go to the next slide, we use this a lot in our cybersecurity incident recovery business. This is helping companies recover from ransomware and things like that. Business was booming, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But lots of ransomware cases at this point in time. I was the sole developer. It was a pretty complex product, and we needed more contributors. People would be out in the field either needing to change something, or they would have a lesson learned from some project that we wanted to incorporate into the tool, and we wanted people to be able to do that. However, it was a very complex product, as I mentioned, and it wasn't exactly straightforward to get people up to speed on this thing. So we realized, just out of necessity, that we really needed like deep dive style teaching sessions to get people up to speed and kind of do group development sessions as well to kind of just teach people along the way how to contribute to this product. So we started a group we called ABE Brigade. It had to rhyme, of course, internally, and that was sort of the genesis of a formal group that met regularly. At first, we met roughly monthly. I think we had all intents to meet more frequently than that, but we were just busy. I had clients doing ransomware recovery and other things, so that was the most frequent we can get together. But something happened in early 2020. I'm sure you all know what that was. So that was a bit of a disruptor to our largely in-person cybersecurity incident recovery business, where we're redeploying operating systems and other things. So that was interesting. And at the same time, or around the same time, the Chicago PowerShell user group was active, and we held our first virtual event in late April. And so this gave us some experience with doing, kind of a virtual meetup style group. So that was good. And we realized, well, okay, so we're meeting when we can for ABE Brigade and making progress on this tool, but monthly or so was not enough time. What was happening is we would get together on that kind of cadence, and people wouldn't remember what we worked on the previous month, so we'd spend 30 minutes trying to get back up to speed on whatever that was, and by then we'd lose all this time. So we kind of decided as a group, hey, like we want to meet more frequently. So we started meeting weekly in May of 2020. Around this time in like September, I had an idea, and I thought, I kind of like this. Everybody was really enjoying this group that we met, where we met weekly and worked on this tool. And we're doing a lot of PowerShell. Maybe we should form a PowerShell interest group internally. That was an idea that popped in my head. But as you can see, I posted this on Teams, for anybody that's a Teams user, and I had no reactions, nothing. So just absolute crickets. And I thought, maybe this isn't such a good idea. So I just sort of tabled that. And we continued on our way with doing ABE Brigade weekly, et cetera. But the idea never really left. And I, fast forward the clock to March 2021, I felt like we should really do this. And I feel like even though nobody's really agreeing to do it, that people would come to this meeting. So I took a chance and we started this interest group, and we had our first meeting in March of that year. We decided to meet every 4 weeks. That just felt right for a more formal knowledge transfer kind of presentation style group. So that's what we did. But one of the things I insisted on, and we still do this today, is we always do a prep meeting 2 weeks in advance. If we can't hold the prep meeting, we don't hold the interest group meeting. That's it. So I'm very strict about this. I know it's a little anal, but I think it's been one of the reasons we've been very successful with this group. Danny will talk more about that a bit later. Right around the same time when we were kind of forming this group, I shout out to my coworker Ryan Kellerman. He created an internal video series called PowerShell and a Bunch of Lunches. And we were actually meeting weekly to kind of basically work through those exercises as a group and tweak things. And it helped us get the entire team basically up to a certain baseline internally. And yes, this is very similar to the book PowerShell in a Month of Lunches, which is a great book. I'm sure you all are familiar with that one. But yeah, we kind of did it as a video series internally, which also helps when we have a new hire. We can basically point them at that resource and turn them loose on that content and basically say, hey, reach out if you need help on an exercise. So that's been great as well. So fast forward the clock to January 2022, things were still going very strong. This is about a year in or so. And I thought, you know what? I know I got no responses on the last one, but I'm going to post again on Teams. And I did. And I posted in multiple channels. And while you don't see any reactions to this, I did have several people reach out asking to be added to the invite. So it achieved the mission, and we got a bigger group going. And that continues to grow today as well. But anyway, right around that same time, we had some trouble. West Monroe leaders just decided, you know what, this cybersecurity incident recovery thing, even though we were very busy, they made the business decision to exit that business. To be honest, I don't fully understand that today, but that decision was made. And selfishly, we were all sort of really enjoying this A Brigade group that was meeting weekly. It was just like a lot of fun to work on this tool and get together weekly and work on this, especially during kind of that COVID era where everybody's pretty much working from home. And but we were sort of looking at it realistically, and we're like, well, we can't keep working on this tool. The tool existed to serve our cybersecurity incident recovery business, and if we're not in that business, how can we keep working on this tool? Well, we can't. So we took a step back and we're like, well, how about we just pivot to working on tools in general? There's plenty of other things we could work on and keep making progress. So we decided to sort of rebrand A Brigade as Toolmakers and make it more general purpose. So that's how Toolmakers started. So I think overall, formalizing Toolmakers in that way, it helped us work toward a few things. First of all, centralization. As we started expanding our scope beyond just Abe, which has largely been on a shelf since then, we brought the tools together, and it helped us with a few things. Problem identification. So I'll give you an example. Danny and I and a couple other people have authored a series of discovery scripts. We use these on M&A projects where we have to get in there and discover things quickly. They were all authored at independent times by independent people. And so things like parameters were not consistent across them, right? It's obvious. That's a natural thing. But as we started bringing these together and using them in a consecutive way, it was sort of obvious as the user, like, oh man, this really stinks. You have to really RTFM every single script you're trying to run, and it was annoying. So that helped us realize, okay, we got to standardize the parameters across these so it's easy to use. And so we did that, of course. And on that note, it helps when you bring things together in this way, it helps you think about what your backlog is, even if it's an informal definition of a backlog, which I like. We'll talk more about that later, but keeping things a bit informal on the backlog is a good thing. Bringing the scripts together helped us see that, and having that weekly meeting also helped us see that as a group. Of course, we can coordinate development across multiple people. Danny mentioned that we use Gather, and Gather allows sort of different virtual tables of people working on different things in the same space, if you will. So it's not like a Teams meeting where one person's talking. You can have multiple people talking, and they're not interrupting each other because they're in different sort of virtual spaces and Gather. If you haven't used it, check it out. It's a pretty cool platform. And then finally, maturity. I'm big on this, right? Like when you first create a script, that's a tool, right? That's something that's serving a specific purpose. But as you either continue to develop that script or that tool, it can become more pervasive, more important, and it becomes a solution. Or maybe you take multiple scripts and together those are a solution. And in several cases, we've developed things that have kind of gotten to that level of being a solution that we're actually taking to market and helping our clients with. So that's something we can either brag to clients about and it's a sales point for us, or in some cases it's like a whole new offering we can give to the market. Like we built a pretty mature offering around file server migrations as an example. So that's something that we can help our clients with. And then pervasive upskilling and knowledge sharing. We basically thrust our new hires into this pretty mature tool chain ecosystem. We've heard from several people, including Blake here, who's been with us a while. But when he first started, I think he was very much upskilled quickly by having to just work with all of these tools. And honestly, they've gotten more user-friendly as well, so it's not like it's that difficult once you get started. But yeah, just getting exposure to all this stuff has been awesome for our new hires too.
Yeah, and so kind of our last point here is some of the kind of formalizing tool makers. One other thing that we've done as of late 2024 is we saw the need for basically a tracker or an inventory of like all of our different scripts and all of our different solutions, so that we could kind of easily find this. We started off with just one basically Azure DevOps repository, had pretty much all of our scripts in it. But as we kind of started evolving solutions and having a lot of scripts that kind of work together, we started separating those out into different repositories, right? So we do have things across different repositories, but we created more of a what we call it the artifact tracker. It basically tracks like our different scripts, where they live. We have a link to all the scripts along with like a description of like what it does, along with either like a video guide or a README guide on like how do you actually use this thing, right? It's not super easy if you're brand new to PowerShell. If you go in and it's not as easy to kind of go in and look and see what exactly the code does. So for new hires, this is to kind of help them out, as well as discuss the value of creating these scripts with our senior leadership. So as of late 2024 and coming into 2025 as of right now, some of the newer things that we've been doing, I think Frank already mentioned Gather. I want to say Gail mentioned it in another his talk using Gather. It's a really cool kind of platform. Like if you're just trying to have like a virtual meeting space with coworkers, it's really cool. You can kind of just go into different rooms. People can work on different things while also all being in the same quote unquote call. Really cool. Another thing that we had as of, I want to say, forget when that was it 2024 when Sam came and spoke? We had Sam Erdy come in and show his new module off to us. He was an external speaker to us. So it was really great to have him in and have an external speaker come in with a kind of a different perspective than we have, because normally we're really focused on our work, solutions for our work, but it's cool to have external speakers come in and speak on something new that they're developing. So that's been pretty cool. Another kind of like meta thing that we've kind of started this year as well is a more informal kind of conference presentation group. So this talk was spawned out of that group. It's like me and Frank and Blake, but we basically just talk about like cool ideas that we want to share with people, maybe things that like we're working on, right? And so it was kind of a natural progression as we started, expanding the group more, and maybe in the future more people will want to join us from our company. But it's been pretty cool as of 2025. So kind of getting into our last section here, just some quick pieces of advice that we've learned over the past 5 years, just running the group. Starting off with the first one here is don't let the good be the enemy, perfect be the enemy of good. Sorry. Basically, what by this we mean, don't try and get like a perfect backlog, a perfect schedule, get everything set up in the perfect way to start your own interest group. You should want to just start the interest group. Maybe you have 1 or 2 people that are friends with you, and you guys work on scripts together and stuff. That effectively is a user group or PowerShell interest group. So just kind of get it started. Just get it on the books. Maybe schedule something for every month, every quarter, whatever works for you, right? It's going to vary. Your mileage will vary, when you kind of get started on your own. But don't let that stop you from, starting something, right? Big piece of advice is really just follow kind of organically how things grow. Like by kind of going back to the point of don't try to perfect things right away. Get the group started, start working with people on stuff, and just kind of see how it organically grows and see what works best for you and how you guys are working together. Is definitely one big piece of advice we have there.
Real quick on the organic point, like I think the conference presenter group that we've kind of got going informally is a good example of that. We obviously are presenting here. We had to kind of get prepped, right? So we were meeting every week to get prepped, and it's like, hey, it's sort of a flywheel thing. Let's just keep this going. Yeah.
Our second piece of advice is really around like the brilliant basics. So like Frank was talking about earlier, like having a preparation meeting 2 weeks before is super helpful for not only getting prepared for, the actual meeting and making sure we have things to talk about, but also just for people's awareness at the company, right? We invite most of our company to come and join it. So we, meet up every, 2 weeks before our meeting. And we talk about, what's the agenda for it, right? And talk about what topics we could present, maybe something that's interesting to people, and then send out that agenda, at least 2 weeks in advance, right? Like we're all busy. Everyone has, client work, project work, other things they're working on, right? So having an agenda sent out prior of exactly the topics that we're going to be presenting during then is super helpful for people who are trying to, plan around it or maybe make time in their schedule if there's a super interesting topic that they want to hear about. So that helps a lot. And kind of as a part of that, you get like a backlog of ideas. Like you're kind of brainstorming on the agenda of like, oh, it'd be cool to show this script. Or maybe we have some script we didn't have time to show this week. Maybe we can show it next week. So you kind of start to build up a list of ideas or topics that you want to present in your group. And that's super helpful. So you're not just like scrambling of like, oh, like what are we going to talk about this week? You can kind of have a backlog to refer to for, any topics you want to present that week. Our last piece of advice is around, get good. Basically use Git. Basically, it's obviously you've heard about it, all week around Git and using it and the benefits of using it. It really helped us with, getting started off on our centralization efforts for all of our scripts. You can start with a single project, single repository, and maybe it's just a bunch of scripts in a folder, right? Like that's perfect to start out. Like going back to don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Just get something there. Like something is better than nothing, right? And so using Git is super beneficial to helping, track changes to things as well as, just maintain one central place to store everything. And then kind of last piece of advice is for, new hires, people who are just starting and maybe haven't worked with like Git, Azure DevOps, and VS Code, creating like a short video, like a little short training video on how to set up VS Code, Git, and DevOps all on their local machine is super helpful for them, right? You can basically send them a 5-minute video and say, hey, just follow these quick instructions, and they can get it all set up on their machine. And that way they can get, started with contributing right away, no matter what they're working on. So, yeah. So hopefully after this talk and this presentation, you're inspired to start your own group if you don't already have one at your company. We'll quickly go through kind of, our learning objectives. We talked about kind of how, from our perspective, it helped with knowledge sharing as well as, innovation around scripts at our company. So hopefully, can do the same, at yours. And then how, we basically gained a lot of employee engagement out of, starting our own interest group. And it really just helped people get engaged with, developing new solutions and new tools at our company. So with that, kind of last learning objective here, but just kind of curious, yeah.
How did you address the motivation of the group while also like having output for leadership?
Yeah, so your question was, how do you address like interest in the group while sort of kind of respecting like what leadership wants, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'll answer it. Danny, you should answer it as well. But my perspective was, if you think about where we were in that period of time, 2020 to 2021, with tech skills, they were so in demand at that point in time. There was a huge emphasis on employee engagement. Now, and fast forward to today, employee engagement's at an all-time low across all industries. So today's climate's a little bit different. But that being said, anything that kept employees engaged, leadership was like pretty happy about that. Without us needing a lot of hard evidence that we're making progress. So we had a little bit of an easier time at that point in time to do this. That being said, I think, Danny, you want to talk about the artifact tracker a little bit and how we use that to demonstrate some value?
Yeah, so we have like, going back to our meta efficiency tracker, it basically tracks like all the scripts we're working on, how much time do they save us on projects, and how much time do we spend working on it, right? If we can demonstrate that like, hey, this script saved us 120 hours, 160 hours over X number of projects, that kind of helps tell that story of like, yeah, we spent 20 hours on development on it, but it saved us 160 hours in the long run, right? That conversation is a lot easier of like, it demonstrates like the value of having the group, because it's like, if we didn't have that time to work on the scripts, we wouldn't have had the scripts to automate the things that would cost 160 hours to actually do. And so in the long run, it saves money for our company and our clients too, because we had these automation tools to begin with. So, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the question was, how much did branding play a role in getting people interested and engaged? I think initially a huge role. You saw the logo for Abe, and it was pretty funny when we were creating that. We had those flags printed and made. We had them hung in the office. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was silly. But yeah, I think that made a big part of it. People were like, what is this? It just created a buzz, around the office because we were in person at that time. And yeah, I think that did help a lot. So having a good logo and something kind of fun or funny to talk about, I think does help. Yeah.
Sure. Questions?
So the question is, how do you, as a leader of a group like this, how do you stay engaged and keep yourself accountable to keep things moving? I think for us, it's been, we sort of operate a little bit by committee. So Danny's the lead, right, at least right now. We've got a couple other people that join this planning meeting. That's every 4 weeks, but 2 weeks in advance of the meeting itself. And I think that group accountability really helps. So it's not just you individually, hopefully you individually running the planning session, right, and like dedicating that time to the planning, but having other people in the planning, I think helps that. And then the variety, I think, also helps. So both in terms of speakers and content and topics, but also we have switched leaders around, here and there as to give other people opportunities. And so that's been helpful too, I think, Danny. Anything else you want to share there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, I'm on like different projects, like, every few months and stuff. And so PowerShell is really kind of like a hobby and like an interest for me as a whole. And so I can kind of, I always try to make sure I have time to dedicate to the interest group, because I know not only does it help me with just like learning about new things that are out there, but I know it helps my teammates a lot. Because, we're going back to like employee satisfaction and getting people engaged. Like having this regular group just help me stay engaged as well with working on PowerShell, because it's like I'm always trying to see what else can I work on. So I think it's just a mixture of like dedication of time, but also just like interest as well, and, personal interest. But a little bit. Yeah, find a partner. Yeah.
You can't find any partner, find your successor.
That's right.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we have time for one more question. Joe, you had one? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the question is, how did you formulate and kind of decide how to run the prep meetings in terms of size and the approach, basically? I mean, honestly, there wasn't anything formal. We just kind of made a best guess. I think we started with 2 or 3 people in that prep meeting, and that has worked pretty well. We keep it to a smaller group. The lead in this case would be Danny. Is the kind of the keeper of the backlog of ideas, and ultimately is kind of the chair of that meeting. But it's a pretty informal group, to be honest. We crack open the last month's agenda and look at it. We look at the backlog and figure out what we want to talk about next. And also, just among that group, the 3 of us generally have a good idea of what people are working on, and so we have enough kind of sideways knowledge to know, like, oh, Blake's working on such and such. Let's see if he's willing and available to present about that at the next month's meeting. And so we might have some action items like that, but generally that's kind of how things go. Anything you want to add, Danny?
Yeah, and I mean, it was kind of just originally, Frank had originally started the group, and I was just kind of a participant in the group, but I was really interested in PowerShell just because I love coding. And so it was kind of a natural progression for me and him to kind of work together on stuff and kind of lead on stuff. So yeah, it was just kind of a natural thing. But you find your partners, like Kevin was saying, it's like you find, someone to keep you accountable, but also whoever that person is, usually is that person is who you're going to want to plan those meetings with and hold those prep meetings for. So.
Okay, we got to wrap it up. Thanks,
we
folks.
gotta
We can
wrap
chat more in the hall.
Thank you all.
Thanks,